Hi everyone, it's Dan from Team Intangible, and in this video we're going to dive into how intangible assessments can be used for roster decisions and lineup creation. I want you to picture this basketball situation. 10 seconds left on the clock, your team is down by 1 point. Who do you give the ball to? No, this isn't just some fun hypothetical. This is the kind of decision coaches live and die by. It can make or break an entire season, and that's where the real problem lies. We're just drowning in stats these days. Points per game, batting averages, more advanced statistics, you name it. And look, those numbers are great for telling us who's a good player on an average Tuesday. But championships aren't won on an average Tuesday. They're won in those high pressure moments. And that is a totally different ballgame. And that's where intangible comes into play with clutch factor scores. This now gives coaches and players a secret weapon to build the perfect lineup, not just for the game itself, but for those make or break moments inside the game. And here's the absolute key: a clutch factor score isn't really about who can jump the highest or run the fastest. It's a score that measures mental performance. It's all about figuring out who can stay cool, stay focused, and execute perfectly when the lights are brightest and everyone is watching. Okay, so to really get a feel for how this works in the real world, let's look at a classic coaching dilemma. This is going to show you the huge gap between what the old stats tell you and what this new metric reveals. So we're right back in a pressure cooker scenario. Coaches are looking down the bench. You've got to drop the final play, and he needs to pick the guy or girl who's going to sink that game winner. And he's got two options. Now, if you just glance at the regular stat sheet, the choice seems like a no brainer, doesn't it? Player two is the star. He's averaging almost 20 points per game. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you were giving him the ball. That's just conventional wisdom. But if it were really that simple, we wouldn't be talking about it. This is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Let's bring in their clutch factor scores to the mix. So, first up, let's look at player number one, our so called lower points per game player. His clutch factor score is a massive 823, which puts him in the elite status. That is a huge sign that this guy absolutely thrives under pressure. And now for our star player, number two. This is the player who scores all the points, and his clutch factor is a 766. That's still pretty good and a great score, but it's way lower than his teammates. And all of a sudden, that obvious choice isn't so obvious anymore, is it? And seeing it like this just lays it all out there. On the one hand, player number two is a clear winner for points per game. But when you look at the clutch factor score, player number one is head and shoulders above. The numbers are telling two completely different stories about the same two athletes. So, what does it all mean? Big takeaway is player one, the guy who scores fewer points night after night, is actually the one you should trust more to sink that game winning shot. I mean, think about it. That single piece of data could be the difference between hoisting a trophy and going home empty handed. So, obviously, this is about more than just one basketball game. This idea of performing when it counts, that's a universal truth in pretty much every sport you can think of. So just think about it for a second. In baseball, who do you want on the mound in the bottom of the ninth with the bases loaded? Who do you want to be that closer? Or in soccer, who's the player you tap on the shoulder to take that final decisive penalty kick? These are the moments where your mental game is everything. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It's not about labeling one player as better than another. It's about being smarter. It's about using this data to understand your players on a deeper level and putting them in the exact situations where they have the best chance to shine. The big question is, how does a team or how does a coach actually take this idea and put it into practice? Well, it all comes down to a new kind of game plan, one that's driven by this new layer of data. It's actually a pretty simple playbook. Step one, you assess your whole roster to see who's built for the big moments. Step two, you identify what those specific high stakes situations are in your sport. And then step three, you match the players with the highest clutch factor scores to those exact moments. Simple as that. The end goal here is pretty clear. It's about moving beyond just using your gut feeling and instead making smart data driven decisions, especially when the stakes are at their absolute highest. And so this whole idea leaves us with one last really interesting question to chew on. Think about your favorite team or your current team right now. Is the best physical player the one with all the stats? Is that person really the one you want to trust when the game is on the line? Or is there someone else who just seems to rise to the occasion? Because this new data suggests that a lot of the time, the answers might surprise you. And that's it for this video. In our next video, we're going to discuss intangible assessments and clutch factor scores that might surprise you and the score alignment systems within it.